Hello, Timmy Nafso here, Executive Vice President and co-founder of FortisPay. We're talking about e-commerce and retail, brick and mortar retail, and the battle that many believe is occurring and why it's occurring. So, just read an article in the Wall Street Journal discussing how large retailers, big box retailers like Barneys, New York, are actually facing possible bankruptcy because rents are extremely high, 30% higher, if not more in some cases, than the pre-recession situation from a real estate perspective. A lot of retailers have been taking advantage from a rent or lease perspective after the recession occurred and having so much vacant space that they were able to get really inexpensive rents. What has occurred, as we know from a lease perspective, especially for business owners, small, mid, and large, is that it starts to increase over time. And now that those increases are kicking in, retailers are finding that it's extremely challenging, especially with e-commerce increasing, right? Gaining ground and traction. In many of our videos, we've actually discussed and had conversation around, retail is not dying, right? Retail, brick and mortar, traditional retail is not necessarily dying, that they need to coexist, and they can coexist. But it's very challenging if you don't have an experience behind a brick and mortar retail store. What I mean by that is if you're just taking a box from point A and selling it at point B, it's going to be very challenging to still survive unless there's something additional that's coming with that, right? Expertise, professionalism, an opinion. Those things all help us to stay alive and relevant in general retail, or else somebody will just order online, it comes to your door, and what explanation is needed or what service is needed. So e-commerce threatens that market first, those without an experience. But as we talk about what's actually happening with rents, right? It's not that e-commerce is just simply winning because that's what the public wants. It's also a result of business and how business is occurring today, right? So when you take a Barneys in New York that's struggling to understand how they're gonna pay these extremely high rents, what they're gonna do is they're gonna sit around a table, no different than any of us would, and say, hey, what are we gonna do? We can't afford to pay these rents. What if we took that money, instead of giving it to the landlord, downsize our store or get out of the store and use it towards marketing or free shipping or really push our e-commerce initiative or start giving things away for free rather than just push it to rent, right? Because is that rent, that increase in rent, gonna yield more revenue for the business? And the answer is no, it absolutely won't yield more revenue for the business, especially since they're in the same place they've been for however many years. All that's happening is they're getting cut into from a profitability perspective. So small and mid-sized business owners, right, the conversation that we have to have is rent increases, as for those of you that have been in your space for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years and that rent continues to increase, is there another way? The business community, entrepreneurs find another way. And it's a struggle on one side for the entrepreneurs that own these centers, right? So there's a battle there that's happening. It's a struggle for the retailer. And that's why so many are saying, hey, if I just present an online presence, I can avoid rent altogether. Or I could pay for rent in a place where I don't need the signage effect, right? I don't need a billboard effect to be on a corner paying high rents. So we're going to keep an eye on this, but a lot of what's happening from a big box perspective is very scary for large malls, for anchor stores, so on and so forth, because what you're starting to find is if you don't have that anchor there, right, the rest of the rents start to decrease, and now landlords are in trouble, right? Commercial landlords are in trouble, and then banks that actually finance those projects are in trouble. So we're going to keep an eye on this. Please comment below and subscribe. Thanks for listening.